The Gang Green Report with Mike Damergis and Rob Carpenter.
Losing by 1 point, you're right there. I mean, you had a chance to win this game, and that's what every game in the NFL is going to come down to. This is the last drive. We either got to go and win it, or we got to stop somebody. We didn't do either one today.
All right, Mike Damergis here with Rob Carpenter, who was at the game as the Jets lose to the Buffalo Bills 17-16. Now, Rob, tell me this is impossible. They had a 16-0 lead. 16-0. 4 first turnovers, including a safety, and they still lose this game. It's impossible. They can't lose to the Bills. They can't turn Josh Allen into Joe Montana in the final quarter. There's no way that can happen.
Well, it happened. And the one thing that actually stands out to me about the fourth quarter, and I said it to one of my old teammates, Fred Baxter, as it was happening. When CJ Mosley was limping off the field, I was like, uh-oh, that's trouble.
Why is that? Why would one player who wasn't even on the team last year, they didn't practice much, they practiced, but they didn't play many games during the season. Can one player make that much of a difference on a defense? Because it looked like they look clueless once he left the game. I mean, there's got to be a secondary guy, especially in a Greg Williams defense, that can step in there.
Well, we all know how CJ Mosley is. He's a great player. You don't find those guys, coming off the street. The backups are not going to be as good as he is. The backups are not going to be able to communicate as good as he is. He put everybody in the right place. For the first 3 quarters, you saw what happened. They pitched the shutout. So, when he goes off the field, and the ironic thing is, he was the one who actually broke up the pass for the touchdown the play he got injured on. Things like that happen, man. When you lose the quarterback on defense, it's just like losing the quarterback on offense. You would hope guys are ready to step in and play, but it's just not the same.
A couple of positives. Le'Veon Bell, definitely a positive, 17 carries, 60 yards, caught a touchdown, got the 2-point conversion as well. Crowder, a big day, 14 receptions, 99 yards, so the newcomers making an impact. CJ Mosley certainly had an impact. Sam Darnold, though, 28 of 41, 175 yards. Missed a couple of opportunities there on the final drive. He had Robbie Anderson running down the left sideline, missed him, and then another time he underthrew him. So, he's got to make these plays. If he's going to be the number one quarterback, and this is going to be the franchise, there were opportunities there for him to make plays on that final drive, Rob.
There was opportunities for him to make plays throughout the game, not just on that final drive. Again, as I said, I was actually sitting watching most of the game with my former teammate Fred Baxter, and we were saying the same thing. He's locking in early on a couple of receivers, and he's holding the ball too long. There was plays to be made all over the field in the first half that he could have. One play he actually didn't set his feet, and Jamison Crowder was coming across the middle. Same thing when Robbie Anderson was coming across the middle. He missed a couple of reads just holding on to the ball and took a couple of sacks that he shouldn't have taken. You would hope going into the second year, especially the way he played at the end of last year, that some mistakes that he, made today that he wouldn't continue to make. And hopefully going forward, they don't continue to make it, or he doesn't continue to make these mistakes. We just hope, and right now I'm just hoping that, again, as I said before, the defensive quarterback gets back, CJ Mosley, because he made a huge impact on the game early on, and just his presence on the field, I think, will actually help out the rest of the defense. But
talk about that groin injury. You're a former athlete. You played with the New York Jets, played in college. How long does it take for a groin injury to recover from? Because really, it's where the cuts are, right?
Yeah, and it depends. Depends on the area of the groin that actually hurt, and how severe actually he actually pulled it. But I've had a groin injury that lasted about a month. And
Jets don't have a month, Rob. The Jets don't have a month.
I know.
I mean,
the first 6 weeks is going to be pretty brutal.
Exactly.
Again, with the hopes that the treatment that he can get, his presence on the field can make a difference. If he could kind of fight through the injury a little bit, where it's not too devastating, where he actually cannot run, because that's one of the muscles that you actually need to actually push up and run. And it can get to the point where you don't want it to be getting up into a hernia. Hopefully, that's not that high up in his groin. But But I guess we're gonna have to wait till tomorrow to actually really find out the extent of it.
Area of concern for me, the offensive line is revamped. I didn't see much of a push that they gave Le'Veon Bell. A lot of the yards were Bell forcing the defenders to miss on the first tackle. Also, for Sam Darnold, the quick passes were working, but anytime he went back in the pocket, he was under pressure. The offensive line did not come through today.
No, and I think part of it is that like you said, it's in a group. So, I think Le'Veon Bell is a special talent, and he has his own way of actually, carrying the ball. The one thing that I did notice today, he actually was using the linemen a little bit, but we do notice and that the linemen actually will have to stay on their blocks a lot longer because you never know where Le'Veon is going to go. The play could be called to go to the front side, and he cuts back. It's just that I'm sure the guys actually get in on the film sessions and notice that they just need to stay on their blocks and just face up and stay in front of a defender, and that will help Le'Veon out. He's the kind of guy, he breaks a lot of tackles. He makes a lot of guys miss in the hole. So, he just needs a little crease. And again, you never know where he's going to go. So as long as the guys actually are manned up and keep in contact with the defender, he'll continue to make plays. But, there were plays there where he showed flashes of his old self. Hopefully, Gase gets in a rhythm as the season goes on with which plays actually work better for him. But there was a lot of missed blocks out there today, too, that he actually made guys miss. So, hopefully as the season goes on, things progress and it gets better.
You were part of a Jet team in '92 that it concluded Browning Nagel. Things started badly with him and never recovered. How hard is it to recover from a loss like this? In week two, they got the Cleveland Browns coming up at MetLife Stadium.
This was going to sting. Because going into the fourth quarter, you just felt like this was a victory that was there. And to end up losing a game like this, it's definitely going to sting. But the good thing is that it's only week one. They got a lot of improvement to go, and there's a lot of season left.
The problem, though, you have a win like this. Your defense forces 4 turnovers, including the safety, and you lose this game. And I don't understand that. Gase seems like a meticulous kind of guy, and putting all these different parts together, and you bring a kicker in off the street from Norway, and he looks like perfect conditions, and he can't kick an extra point, and he can't kick a field goal. So even if the Jets drove down the field, they had to score a touchdown there. There's no way, even if it was beyond 20 yards, there's no way they could have went to Vedvik.
And everybody in the stadium felt the same exact way. Everybody around us.
Give me the Zendejas brothers from the 80s, the Max and Luis Zendejas. Bring them back.
Yeah, I actually sent out a tweet during halftime, like Joe Douglas must be in the stadium right now looking for a kick. Somebody, anybody. But everyone around the stadium kind of felt the same way. The Jets actually needed, even when they took, when they went down and scored the second touchdown and took the 16-point lead, everybody felt that, they're going to need to score again, but they're going to need to score a touchdown, not even attempt a field goal. And then even on that drive, there were most of the guys that were actually sitting around, most of the fans that were sitting around were like, no, we need a touchdown. Don't trust the kicker. But it is kind of ironic that, as training camp went along, they really weren't,
Rob, all the kickers that come out of college. You mean all the soccer players there are, all the rugby players are. You're telling me this is the best they can do? A professional NFL team that plays in New York City. This guy looks so spooked. He had no chance. He had no chance at this. I could have tried out.
It wasn't only him. It seemed like they weren't very aggressive with trying to find a kicker from the offseason. It just was really weird. When Canizaro actually had his troubles early in training camp and it just festered, then finally they decided to cut him and bring this kid in, Bertolette. But Bertolette actually seemed like he was very nervous even in practice. So, it's weird that they just weren't very aggressive, even though everyone could see that there was going to be an issue with the kicker, from when training camp started. Everyone out at training camp saw Canizaro missing so many extra points, so many field goals in practice.
Wow.
So it was going to carry over into the games. But again, hopefully, Joe Douglas and they see it now. When the bright lights are on now, and the kicker is going to be an important part of this team. Has to be. So they're going to have to go out and find one like tomorrow. Everybody felt like, that this guy's actually pretty much done after today.
Yeah, we're talking with Rob Carpenter, former New York Jets receiver. The Gang Green Report. Jets lose to the Buffalo Bills 17-16. They were up 16-0. Rule of thumb, you look at the old Bears teams, you look at the Bill Parcells teams from the 80s and 90s. If you have a running game and you have a good defense, you better have a good special teams game. You better have a kicker that's can make a 50-yard field goal when you need it. And in bad weather, at least give it a try. I just don't understand how this team was orchestrated without getting a kicking game in there, Rob. I just don't. What do you see now? Let's talk about what's going on in the locker room. Can you lose a team in week one? Can that happen to a team? I know in '92 you lost the home opener. Browning Nagel was a quarterback. The first snap of the game, he fumbles the ball, but you came back. At least you guys made a game of it, but it seemed like you never recovered from that loss. Can we not recover from this loss, you think?
Well, the one thing that is different about this team and that team, Browning, that was basically his first year playing.
Right.
So, he really didn't have any snaps under his belt at that point in time. So everything was going to be new for that whole season.
But here's what I'm looking at. Week 2, the Browns. Now, the Browns don't scare me. I predicted they were going to be a mess this year. I thought they would win 7 and 8 games. It's too much of a soap opera there. Then you got the Patriots, by the way, who have Antonio Brown. Then you got the Eagles that they won today. And then you got the Cowboys. And then you got the Patriots again. And then maybe week 8 they'll get their first win against the Jaguars because that team seems to have imploded since they had the Patriots beat and looked like they were going to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So, I don't know, Rob. To me, this is a disaster. The
first 6 games I've had scheduled, as circled on the calendar. Not as losses, but as
you knew they were going to lose them. Come on, Rob. You knew it.
No, I really didn't. I wanted to see how the season was actually going to start, honestly, because the one thing I felt is that the offense was going to start slow. I didn't think the offense was going to come out blazing. I really didn't. Because when you have so many new pieces and most of the guys weren't playing in the preseason, even though practice does count and you can get into a very good rhythm in practice because you are, basically going thud and, that the practices are kind of fast. They're almost game-like situations a lot of times. So the one thing that I wanted to see was how the back end of the defense was actually going to play. And I think that's actually what let him down.
It failed.
Today.
Tremaine Johnson should give his check back because, are you kidding me with this guy?
We actually, one of the plays he actually gave up on the third down. I'm like, man, you got to be kidding me. We know the rule of thumb. When you play bump and run, you don't let a receiver inside, especially when you're playing the receiver from outside. It's even worse when you're playing a receiver in the slot. You really try to take away the inside, but Jermaine actually was just literally letting guys go to the inside and then in a chase mode. And one of the third downs he gave up, he was probably 3 or 4 yards behind the receiver when the receiver caught the ball and he had to end up chasing him across the field and the receiver ended up getting like 20 yards. I'm like, you got to be kidding. And I was like, there's no way that you play as hard as you play on the first 2 downs and you give up a play like that. You have to know what's coming. The technique is terrible. And I don't know if it's being coached that way. I don't know if that was part of the defense, anything like that. But I noticed when he's playing bump and run, he's not as effective as he is when he's playing off coverage. And it's maybe it's just his style. I'm not really sure. I know he's had, he had those good years when he was at the Rams, but as of now, it's not the same guy. And the defense is going to be in trouble if CJ's not there. And, I wasn't too worried about Cleveland coming in. I honestly thought these first 2 games were going to be wins for the Jets. And the 4 after that.
If you start off 2-0, you hope maybe you get to 3-3. And we got a follower on YouTube. Dara Walsh says, "Woohoo, go Bills! What a comeback!" I don't know if it was much of a comeback as another Jets choke. And welcome to Jets football 50 years. Welcome, Le'Veon Bell. Welcome, CJ Mosley, to what Jet fans have been living for 50 years. I cannot believe they lost to the Bills today, 17-16. You think a franchise that lost 4 straight Super Bowls would have, a self-esteem problem as big as the Jets? The Jets, I think, have the biggest self-esteem problem next to the New York Mets in professional sports.
I think Jets fans
Well, we live this. You know, for you guys, you can't take it home the way you do because I guess it would eat you up as a player, yeah, but as a former player, you know, at least you could go to the games and just say, ain't me, right?
It's not me. I'm watching now. I can critique,
yeah,
but it's not me.
Okay.
But, yeah, I totally get it. Trust me, I totally get it. I hear it all the time. You know, even as former players, man, sometimes we sit there and we shake our head like, you got to be kidding me. This can't be happening.
Coming up for the Jets, just right? Like exactly. Cleveland Browns next week. The Baker Mayfield show, along with I guess we got Odell Beckham. Rob, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks again, Rob Carpenter, former New York Jets. The Jets lose to the Buffalo Bills. I can't believe it. 17-16. Unbelievable, unfathomable, ridiculous. It stinks to be a Jet fan. People that are young and have a chance. If you're having children, guys. And mothers, please don't make your fans Jet fans. I got a nephew lives out in L.A. I'm going to make sure he's a Ram fan. At least his growing years are going to have Jared Goff. Goff will be around for another 10 years. By then, he'll be 15 years old. He'll at least watch a good quarterback because what as Jet fans, what have we had through the years? Boomer had a good year. We had Ken O'Brien, top-rated quarterback in '85, and before that, we had Joe Namath. Well, that wraps things up. We'll catch you week 2. Follow us on Twitter at Sports Radio Prof and Rob Carpenter as well. And what's your Twitter handle there, Rob?
At Rob Carpenter 81.
At Rob Carpenter 81. We'll see you next week in week 2.